So we got some people that got Ember stuff in production. We got some people that don't know anything about Ember. Is that correct? So I'm going to focus on the don't know anything about Ember people. All right. Ember. If you take an HTML file and just add the Ember JavaScript include, and then one line of JavaScript that I show you, where you create an instance of Ember application, you have an Ember application. Okay. So let's not overcomplicate it. That's all it is. So it's that, and it depends on Ember, and it also depends on handlebars, which is the scripting language, and it also depends on jQuery, right? Everybody knows that stuff. What I find interesting when I was looking at different frameworks is a lot of the other ones depend on those things as well. Meteor also does handlebars and jQuery and so forth. So anything that you kind of, like Ember and other concepts, it's not like lost effort if you want to look at different things. All right? So, that being said, hey Pat, are we ready to go? Okay, so let's look at this case study right here. This is the case study 1. I'll show you guys where all this stuff resides on GitHub, under my handle and everything like that. So this is an Ember application right here. We can take a look at it, inspect the element. I do not want to look at that. That is confusing. Bring it over here, next to the Ember tab. Boom. So that's how you can tell if anything's any Ember application on the web. Yep.
I'm going to tell them that that's an add-on.
It is. We're going to go through that in just a second. You're absolutely right. That's a Chrome plugin. Any Ember application on the World Wide Web, if it's an Ember application, you can see it. You can look at all the routes. You can see how they architected the whole view. It's really cool. It's a very good learning tool. So to install that, just go ahead and you're going to look for Ember Inspector, and then you can install it there. And then you're going to open up the index.html, and it's not going to work, okay, which is awesome. So then you want to check on allow access to URLs and so forth. That means you can have files on your local machine, not through a server, proxy through a server, and then that's going to work for you, okay? So that's a gotcha. Hopefully you guys don't have to deal with that anymore. So then you get your debugging. That's an incredibly powerful tool. We'll take a look at it in a second. I want to show you guys just how easy this Ember application is. Okay, so right here, that's nothing. That's just Hello World AppKit gives you, or the Ember Starter gives you red, yellow, blue. A simple about page, just a template, no magic. Notice there's no server or anything like that, so that's why there's no reload. And then we can bring up posts, and then this is our record set from the database or Ember model, or in our case just local JSON. And then we show them, and then we're going to show the master detail here. Again, I really want to emphasize that this is kept simple on purpose. So then you're going to have this. Okay, so we're going to do inline editing. So we manage the state with something that we don't save in the database. So that's just a field on a controller. We can show you that. We're using Moment.js, so we included that so we can use a helper to format our dates. And then also, this is rendering, there we go, Markdown. So it'll bind that right there real time. So it's doing that through Showdown.js, so which I think is pretty awesome. It has the binding, so you can see on the recent post, as well as wherever you see that variable, it binds that value, so it updates it real time. And then it writes there as well. So we're good to go. One thing that's also very interesting about Ember is that I was able to refresh the whole application. It takes me exactly to that state. When I say state, I mean that you don't say, oh, go to this Ember URL and then click on this and then click on this and click on this. Now you're looking at exactly what I'm looking at. Ember worked very hard to maintain that state so that you can pass around URLs and it'll bring up that post. That was like their #1 goal. That shocked me at first. Why? That doesn't sound very ambitious. But if you think about it, a perfect example for me is like CNN Money. I go to that website all the time. I also have that app on my iPad. I never use the app. I always use the website. And the reason is because you can click around and so forth, and then use that URL, send articles and so forth. But every time you're in the app, I don't know what's going on. You got to click around to get to a certain state and so forth. So the URLs and the document nature of the web, even in single applications, is very nice. It's one of the things that kind of stands out from traditional iOS applications and so forth. So that's the whole app. And it took work to break that down into 11 steps, but we did it and so forth. So I'm going to show you guys exactly what that is. Actually, you know what I want to show you real quick before we do that is the very first okay, so the very first place to start the Hello World, if you go to Ember, their website, is this big button right here. Okay, that button's your friend. It's not scary. Click on that or get it, and you're going to get that version 1 zip file. And then you unzip it, and then you get, what do you get? And then you get the starter kit, which you can't see. So then if you go into the starter kit, so then you get the index, you got your JavaScript, you got your app, so you have your one HTML file, you have your one JavaScript file, and then all the dependencies and so forth. So if you open that up, there you go, red, yellow, blue. You see that in all the almost all the skeletons and so forth. What it's doing is it's actually looping through JSON data right there and dynamically displaying that. Take that out, put your data in. So let's go to Inspect Element, Ember. Sure enough, it is an Ember application. We go to Data. Ember Data is not in. Ember and Ember Data are two different projects. Ember is production ready. Ember Data is not production ready. They're not kidding when they say that. You can lose hours and hours and hours on things in Ember Data that don't work, that are documented in the docs, and it really sucks. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I'll show you a little bit of Ember Data stuff. But the spoiler alert is relationships, your model relationships are there like you would expect, has many, one to many, and so forth. And then reading from the server works great. Posting to the server with Ember Data does not work great as far as relationships go. If somebody knows better than me and has that working without hacks, great. But as far as I can tell, it doesn't work. And that's why people are migrating away from it and just using different techniques or just using straight, jQuery AJAX calls. Cool. Okay, so let's take a real quick look at the code, and then we'll move on. Okay, so there's your head stuff. We'll get rid of that. This is going to be your application template. This is your index, where it's looping over everything. And there's that. That's the whole application right there. Yeah. Okay, so this is all the JavaScript right now. We create an Ember application, and then we have a placeholder for configuring the router. Okay, and then we have an index route. Now, like router, routes, confusing. It's kind of like, it's just a simple one-to-many. You have one router which has many routes. So you automatically get application and application index right out of the gate. This is where you're going to put your other routes as far as post, about, all your other URL-driven routes. They're going to go in here. Now, once you put your route, you configure your routes here, it automatically creates a route, okay? And that route is where you're going to specify the model data that goes back to it, okay? I'm going to show you better examples here. I'm just trying to get high level. So this index route right here, that's not creating an index route. That's overriding the index route so you can change the default values that Ember gives you out of the box. It's kind of a key difference, I find, in understanding, because there's a lot of objects going around. So we saw red, yellow, blue. That's all it's coming from. It's a simple array. So you can put arrays. We can change that if you want. You put in objects. You can put whatever you want in there, and that's simply that. We're going to build from that though. So we're going to build from that till we get to our about application and have all this functionality. And I'm getting down to like 15 minutes, so I can show you guys the different steps and whatnot that go into it so that you can get an idea. Right? So if you were to pull down this application, this Kata, and you wanted to work through it, at master, it's got the full final solution, so it's going to be working for you out of the gate. And then what you can do is it has a branch. It has one for beginning and to take you back to your starter. And then it has a branch for one begin, and then it has fin for finished. And then each one of those shows you the solution for that given issue. So one fin is going to be the solution for the issue 1, okay? And it'll take you through all 11 steps that you need to build that application for example code. So that's kind of like going to be the easiest way you can get from never working with an application, pull this code down, you have an Ember application, get your Chrome extension set up and so forth. And now once that's gone, you can roll it all the way back to one begin and slowly step through, okay? Or if you just kind of want to casually look through it, I have the issues here. So issue 1 is going to coincide with one fin, with that branch. And right on this issue, you have different check mark steps of telling you exactly what steps to do. So for step 1, we're going to add Twitter Bootstrap, and then we're going to just include the static version of the nav bar, right? Again, we're just trying to build base functionality. I know you guys know how to do this. But so we're going to build a prototype of what we're building, and then we're going to drive into it. So as you can see, if you come down here, it's going to show you exactly the git diff of everything you need to do, right? Cool? So that's not really Ember yet. That's just static. So then if we go to the next issue, we want to say, all right, I want to click the About link, and instead of having a hyperlink, I want Ember to take over now, and I want to render an Ember template, okay? So this is going to be your first bit of Ember. So let's click on this. So the first thing that we're going to do is swap out the static hyperlink and put an Ember link to it. This is another great example that has similar mechanisms in different MVCs. So we can't put in a hyperlink because we have the / and so forth with Ember managing the URLs through the router. So we have to have that link to it. So then we just put in the name of the about. Now, on the next item right here, that's the code that we need to set up that template in the router. Okay? So now in our router, we configure a resource for an about route. And then down here in our index, we create the about template. Okay? So again, I'm not giving any feedback here, so help me out, guys. I don't know how to make it any easier than that because it is abstract. This is probably, if you haven't done Ember before, you shouldn't have any familiarity with this concept, so that's fine. But to work through it the first time, this is the best way that I could show. Okay, I want to show a page through, I want to render it through Ember. So I want it to be rendered through JavaScript. How do I do it? I've linked with the link to, I put in a router, I put a resource in the router for about, and then I wire that up to the about template. And then there you go. Without a server refresh, you have an Ember application, that's your first page. So if you're going to try to convert a CRUD application over to Ember, this is going to be the first step, is setting up your empty templates and whatnot. So that's the code. When you go to the diff, you can see that. Let's rip out that href, or that anchor tag, and put in a link to. let's put in an about template right next to the index template. And then in our JavaScript file where it says put your routes here, we put this.resource about. Cool?
Isn't there support pulling routes from pulling these templates from different files?
Yes, absolutely. This is the simplest thing that could possibly work. Okay, this is a static file, one HTML, one JavaScript. So before I run out of time, I'm going to show you Tapas. Tapas is not the simplest thing that could possibly work. If you guys are like me, and I don't, maybe you're a ton smarter than me. If you look at Tapas, I have no idea what's going on. But I had a foundation of working through these steps, so I understood, okay, I need a route. What do I want to show a template about what I do. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then I went to Ember's with Tapa, and you see, or Tapas with Ember, whatever, and you see the exact same thing you do in the starter kit. You see red, green, blue. Okay, where's that at? Now I know I can put I can put that there. But to answer your question, that is the common way to build production Ember applications, is to separate out all this into different files and whatnot and so forth. So templates are going to get a handlebars space, HBS, and then you won't have to put in the script, you just put your code right in there. And then through outlets and whatnot in your router, Ember brings that all together for you magically, which again is confusing at the onsite. So once you wrap it, you can go. Okay? So I'll just show you guys a couple more, and then we'll burn right through it, okay? So those are the 3 steps for that. So then the next one is showing the post. I don't really need to show you guys this because this is old hat to all you Ember developers now, but put in the post link to, add a route or add a resource to the router for post, create a template and call it post. Now we have both links are dynamic with Ember, being managed under Ember. This one's a little bit different. Now we're going to make that listing dynamic. Okay? So, boom. So we take all that static HTML. We put it each wrapped around the table row. And so for every model instance in that array, it's going to render that for us. This is where Ember magic starts to kick in. Okay, guys? You believe yet? Okay. So we already have our routers connecting post to post template. That's done. When you do that, it automatically creates a post route for you. Okay, but if you want to configure that, you have to override that post route. Okay, and put that in your code, and that's what we're doing here. And then you have a hash model, a model where you can specify what model data to put in there. It sounds complicated, it's not. So in this case, we're just saying return this post array. That's it. So we put in a post array of objects. We overrode the route, which is given to us automatically, so that we could say, hey, return the post. And then in our post template, we say each, and then we iterate through and we spit out that data. Now, how does it know what each is? Anybody? Handlebars. This is where they're going to say, listen, we get it. In web applications, we iterate over database records all the time. Let's not boilerplate this. If you wire a model with multiple records, okay, such as we did, to this route, and then push it into the template, it's going to say, array, I got it. It's only one model, okay, each, we're gonna iterate over the records of that array, and so forth. I got it from here. I know now that a title is going to map the title and so forth. Okay? The first time you do that, it's kind of confusing. It feels like magic. The 10th time you do it, it's old hat. And then you can't talk to people anymore because it's all implicit information. And they're like, what's going on? And you're like, don't worry about it. That kind of thing. So, again, so that's what you're trying to do. Here it is really implemented. Okay? What's amazing is this is the whole JavaScript This is essentially the whole JavaScript file.
Don, can you bump the font size a little bit?
Yeah. What's amazing is this is almost the whole JavaScript file. Out of all the stuff that we're talking about, I think we're up to about 12 lines of JavaScript. And with 12 lines of JavaScript, we have 3 pages, and then we have model data backing and whatnot. And what's really brilliant, and we'll see, I don't think we're going to get to it, guys, because we're down to less than 10 minutes. On step 11, the final step, it's, okay, get rid of that array data, and now let's start pulling with Ember data. Let's start pulling it in from JSON feeds and whatnot. And it's just a one-line change. And that's where, once you get over the hurdle of this function and this building blocks, that the magic really starts, you know, the productivity gains really start being seen. You just got to wade through the initial stuff first. And then, again, this is the simplest kata that could possibly work. But one of the different ones is Rails. So you get a Rails application in there, and you can have you'll have an actual database back, and it maps into the JSON. And it has a one-to-many with, with one author and many posts and so forth. And you can see examples of how that application was built up step by step. So that will be available. That's all out there right now. Any questions so far? So you asked if if you could break that out. Here's an example where we do break it all out. Application skeletons have become very popular. Ember has a ton of them. The one I chose is Tapas because JMac wrote that himself and whatnot. So it's just nice having exposure to that, to the author of it. And it's been spawned off many times from him. And it's been getting some nice buzz and some nice write-up. So instead of one HTML, one JavaScript. Now I don't even know what's in this thing. It's tons of stuff. Okay, so, but it gives you an incredible amount of features right out of the gate. It's CoffeeScript if you like that. It's auto reload when you're doing it, and every time you save a file, it reloads. It gives you better debugging tools, and right out of the gate. What's that? Yes. Yeah. I wish JMac was in here. Pat, you want to talk about it? It's a branch. Okay. Right.
It sets up the skeleton.
Right.
I've never used Bunch before, but it's pretty easy to use. There's a bunch of skeletons out there. You just know the skeleton.
Right. So my experience is the first time that I looked at it as not an Ember developer, not having working knowledge of Ember, it was overwhelming and I wasn't able to be productive with it. And then after going through the starter kit and understanding the 6 different components and understanding getting the application working and going through the steps, then I went back to Tapas, ported the application in under 20 minutes. And I got to tell you, to my shock, it's a great working environment. It's just head and shoulders above working static files, all the niceties and the debugging and everything else that it gives you. All right?
Don, we had this discussion in the office yesterday.
Yep.
You're learning Ember.
Uh-huh.
That's probably the best way to start.
No.
But once you get a handle on it, Tapas is a good way to build apps.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe I'm struggling saying it. That's exactly what I'm trying to get across.
I have the exact same experience. I jumped into Tapas.
Right.
It's too overwhelming. Went
Right.
back to the tutorial. I understood what's going on with back to Tapas.
Right. And then once you have that nice skeleton, you have your feet underneath you. It's like being in a BMW Corvette. It's fabulous. You're a happy developer. It's not a lot of fun to work in static HTML files and whatnot, but it is really simple. You can have your one HTML, you can have your one JavaScript, and you can wrap your head around those concepts. So definitely start there. Keep it as simple as possible. But so what I just want to show you guys. So if you were to take a look at this kata, if you ever wanted to go through it, you got to that. Here's your 11 steps again. So it's going to be exactly the same. Add Twitter Bootstrap. Add the static nav bar. It's exactly the same step. One thing I find fascinating, though, is if you look at the commit, your first question might be, where's my entry-level hook in Tapas? There's a lot of files. This will tell you it's right there in app assets index.html. Okay? So it gives you, it's like the Rosetta Stone. It gives you all the answers of where you want to put your assets. If you can understand the first tutorial, you can directly apply everything. Or in this case, you can look exactly how I did it in this example. So then, where's the app? And then where's your first application template? Put all your static stuff. You'll find it right there in App Templates application. Real simple when it's right in front of you. When you pull down the first skeleton, green field, it's a little overwhelming. So now we're going to put our first piece of Ember in there with our template. Now we're breaking things out into different files, and we're using CoffeeScript. So here's a nice example if you want to compare and contrast what Ember looks like in JavaScript versus CoffeeScript. Here's the same thing, and this is going to be put in the app config router.coffee file. Okay, and that's what it is. So we got the add, so it's just this .resource. It's the same thing. App templates about. So let's skip step 3 because it's the same thing for post. And step 4 is going to be putting in the dynamic data. We update the template. This is old hat by now, right? Beautiful. Now we're going to create the post route because, again, you've got to override the route if we want to specify what model data to push into the template. Else it's going to say, I got no model data, I got nothing. I'll give it to you on the default. So if you got model data, this is what it's going to look like in CoffeeScript. You can refer back to the other one to see what it looks like in JavaScript. And then I went ahead and put the post right there. Okay? Cool? So there's a lot of knocks against Ember.js right now, and I think it's unfortunate because once you get out of that suck threshold and get into actually building stuff, you can do stuff really, really quick. So that's what I was kind of hoping to show by having this stuff available and whatnot. So with the different, another knock against Ember is that it's hard to test, which there's not a lot of information out there about unit testing, which can be done, but integration testing, where you say, go to this URL and I expect this to be here and this to be here, that's very easy to do. In fact, the kit gives that to you right out of the gate. All you have to do when you open up the index.html is put a question mark test at the end, and I'll bring up the test runner for you and so forth. So testing comes right out of the gate when you unzip the starter package and start going with it. So I created another kata where it does everything test-driven development. So all those tests exist. So if you want to see how I went through the application and tested it. There's also the Rails version, and then there's also the Meteor version if you want to take a look at Meteor. So yeah, it can be hard to get started. Download the starter pack, take a look at that video, check out the katas and so forth to give you the code and step you through the initial steps and whatnot. Listen to the video as the creator of Ember kind of talks you through the philosophies. Do that a few times, and I think you guys will be up and running and doing whatever you want to do. And if you want to wire it up with Rails, it's all there as well. So I'm going to tweet out the link for this presentation on GitHub. I also put in a file for resources, videos, skeletons, sample applications, anything that I could think of to throw it in there as long as links to any of these katas. And also, like I said, I put in the Meteor one because I think you guys should check that out as well. I enjoy developing with Ember, but toy applications and getting things out there in a few minutes. Adam, Pat, you're the same way, right? Don't you still play with Meteor as well?
I put in the Meteor for a little bit.
Right.
I'm a little bit more struggle with that. I didn't have anybody to ask help.
Okay.
Kind of abandoned that.
Okay.
That was the year because I had somebody to ask. I'm just going to add, if you struggle with Ember, feel free to tweet us. We'll be able to help you out with some questions or whatever.
Right.
So,
I think that's another key point. There's another, we talked about why Ember, and it's because I had exposure to these guys that were doing some Ember stuff. I have exposure to the Gaslight guys who are doing some Ember stuff. I have people that ask questions and so forth. So that was simply put, that was another thing that weighed on it. But don't be afraid to check out different technologies as well. There's no silver bullet yet. Nobody has
cornered the market and got the de facto answer on the best way to do these things. All this stuff is still emerging and whatnot. So, but anyway, like I said, I'll tweet out the link. Hope you guys find this helpful and everything like that. But I think it's definitely worth checking out. I'm happy I did. Also,
Cool, thank you, Don.
all right.
What do you think?